Today I want to talk about the worst writing advice ever. Number 1. Never use a word other than said to describe speaking in a dialogue tag. This limited lexicon counsel came from an old man who was also a writer. He argued that anything other than the word said was pretentious. But let me illustrate how stupid this sounds. "Fire," said the attendant as smoke poured into the theater. "Ouch," said the child. "I think I've broken my arm." "I've been framed," the woman said to the police. Restricting dialogue tags to the word said is boring, constrains expression, and highlights a limited vocabulary. What writer wants to be known for that? The second bit of really bad advice is this. Make sure your stories are written at a 5th grade reading level and make sure you don't use big words in your narrative. Now this is a real slap in the face. I had to learn this language, and I don't give a steaming, stinking pile of bat guano if you find my vocabulary intimidating. I'm not writing for a marginally literate audience. The ideas I explore in my novels are not intended for children. So why would I insult the intelligence and experience of my readers by dumbing down my lexicon for the sake of the knuckle-dragging, mouth-breathing proto-brains among us who can't handle words they haven't read in an elementary primer? Here's the thing. If you're a microencephalon right now, you don't need to stay that way. Yes, you can learn new words. I did, and reading was instrumental in that process. Here's an example from Thomas Mann's Joseph in Egypt. I bought this original 1938 boxed set for $1 at the Eagle Rock Plaza Mall many years ago. Not only did I enjoy the beautifully written story in it, I also learned the word superfluous. This passage describes the exit of the Midianite traders who brought Joseph down to Egypt. It's found in the first book on page 171. But their self-satisfaction was untroubled by the state of things. They took themselves as seriously as they ever had, packed up their wares, and never dreamed that they were now superfluous. It's the ideal word for that sentence because it perfectly suits both the narrative and the historic fact. We've never heard from those Midianite traders again. Besides, sometimes using a $10 word is far more effective in a sentence than a long description. Here's an example from The Long Journey, my second novel. Crossing a thin concrete bridge that arched over the ablated remains of a glacial toe, the Temerian locomotive turned into the lee of the drumlin and began its final ascent. Now let's compare that to crossing a thin concrete bridge that arched over the material eroded by the melting, evaporation, friction, and drying of a glacial toe, the Temerian locomotive turned into the lee of the drumlin and began its final ascent. The second version is 7 words longer. If you can't figure out the meaning of the word ablated from context, there's a wonderful invention called a dictionary which can help you. Good grief, people, we're not medieval peasants. We have computers and the internet. What's the point of dumbing down our literature? Shouldn't we celebrate composition that is skillful, precise, and clever? So don't take those 2 bits of silly advice. Let people learn from your personal lexicon. Let your readers feel the narrative come alive in their souls with lovely language written as well as you can possibly compose. After all, why not? I'm Robert of Devra, author of the Devra in Conflict series. Visit my home on the web at www.newadventure.ca. It's adventure for your mind and romance for your heart.